Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Would you agree?
Hello, everybody. Happy Disney Plus Day. I am sitting here with David Griffin and Jesse Gill. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Great. Let's stop wasting time and talk about the important stuff.
Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning right now. We're going to be talking about Mandalorian. We will not be talking about Lady and the Tramp, so this spoiler warning applies to the Mandalorian only. First of all, guys, what do we think of the show in general? A lot of hype around the show, obviously. Did it live up?
I think it delivered a solid introduction. The episode was a little shorter than I thought it was going to be. It was only about 40 minutes. So
I was surprised to see that, yeah.
It got to the point quickly, didn't waste a lot of time, and it left me wanting more, which I think, any good episodic show should. We're going to have to wait till the next week just till Friday to find out what happens next, but it left me wanting more for sure.
I definitely thought that the first episode gave us a first step into this show and what it's going to be, and it definitely sets that up really, really well. This is definitely the space western that we've been promised, and now after the cliffhanger that was Baby Yoda in the very last closing moments of the show, we'll get to see him again on Friday.
Yeah, let's talk about Baby Yoda. That's going to be the biggest story from the first episode here, I think. So we know the Mandalorian is sent after a kind of top secret, high value target, and it is revealed to be a Baby Yoda. Which, for lack of a better, until we find out what species Yoda really is officially in canon, we'll call him Baby Yoda, or her, Baby Yoda, I suppose. Mm-hmm. What are the implications of this, do we think?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of places you can take this, because we have seen, we'll call them Yoda species, throughout, the Star Wars Yogans, throughout the Star Wars universe, in the canon and of course in Legend. So we know there are other Yoda-like creatures out there. There was one called Yaddle, who used to be a Jedi Council member, and in the Legend, she passed away. But this is canon. This is new canon, so she could be alive. Maybe she had a kid. But I mean, of course, there's some other theories we can get into that may be just a bit more interesting. I'm sure Jesse, you might have something to say about that.
Well, I think the most interesting part of this is who sent the Mandalorian to capture this bounty, dead or alive, and what their possible ends for this Baby Yoda could be. Mm-hmm. Are they trying to do experiments on it? You have to, when you see a Yoda, or we don't know what species this is, so we call it a Yoda. But when you see that, you instantly start thinking about a Force user,
right?
And the post-Empire remnants are somehow wanting to experiment on that, or extract that from the baby somehow. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I think we saw, back when I'm going to call him Werner Herzog's character, because Werner Herzog's character so far doesn't have a name yet. So he and his little doctor friend, Dr. Pershing, you could see there was a little back and forth there.
The doctor clearly wants the target alive, and Werner Herzog doesn't care quite so much about whether or not the baby's alive. So IG11 and the Mandalorian's paths cross as they're both, tracking down what turns out to be Baby Yoda. Who do we think sent him?
I think it makes sense to assume that Werner Herzog's character sent IG11, because he obviously didn't mind if the target, the asset, was brought back or confirmed dead in the first place.
Right.
So that's at least, I think, that what that scene was supposed to make us believe.
Yeah, it's weird because we had Mandalorian was there, saying okay, we have the target now, and then he's like, oh, we've got to kill it. But when we're in the meeting with Herzog and Pershing was like, oh, but if we have him alive, we'll pay you more. So it's weird that IG11 has different orders.
Yeah, it's like Werner Herzog sent IG11 on his own. I get the other possibility would be Carl Weathers' character Grief, because of the way that his interaction with Mandalorian went down with the form of payment that he was accepting, and there was some kind of a shell game with what type of credits he was getting,
and that's
all
what
that
stopped IG11 from shooting at him in the first place, is when he identified himself as being part of the Gill.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if Carl Weathers had some shady kind of ulterior motives as well, or he's working for several different clients. I mean, there's no telling how many people will be looking for Baby Yoda at this point either.
They said a lot of them
It might not be Werner Herzog. It might be Giancarlo Esposito's character that we haven't met yet. It could be any number of people that are looking for Baby Yoda.
If they were,
Baby
if they
MacGuffin
had all
Yoda.
those thugs like already protecting the baby to begin with, they had to realize that would have been a very sought after.
Somebody knows just how important Baby Yoda
Which
is.
makes, that's the question. I want to know who is protecting Baby Yoda.
Right.
Who put Baby Yoda there to be protected by all those mercenaries? Yeah, very curious.
Here's this for a wild theory. How about the remains of the Empire? Obviously, that's what Werner Herzog represents. He's got the stormtroopers around him and everything. They're looking for this Baby Yoda. Is it possible that they're looking for this Baby Yoda to extract the midichlorians that are undoubtedly in the Baby Yoda, because that's what that species is, I guess, famous for, theoretically, in an effort to resurrect the Emperor? Is the Mandalorian going to lead straight into Rise of Skywalker in that way?
Or whatever they want this Baby Yoda for will somehow funnel straight into that.
Because we know they can clone things, obviously. Lots of clones attacked at some point. I can't remember when. So we know that they can clone some, but if it's cloning like a actual Force user, like maybe there's a complication to that. And at this stage in the timeline, this is just 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which means it's 25, 30 years before Rise of Skywalker. So they've got decades worth of time to do these experiments and to turn a Baby Yoda into a resurrected Emperor.
Right, because we're still trying to figure out how the Emperor is going to come back in what form. I mean, none of us really know until we see the movie. But in past stories, Palpatine has been cloned. He has come back. So, I mean, if this is like early testing to how they could, possibly do that in the future, that would be cool. That's a pretty cool storyline.
The release schedules line up too, because there's 8 episodes in this first season of The Mandalorian. The second to last episode drops the night before Rise of Skywalker comes out in theaters, and then there's one episode. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the revelation in the second to last episode of this season of Mandalorian, and then the episode that comes out after Rise of Skywalker is sort of like spinning out into where the rest of this series is going to go after this initial storyline, which is kind of a similar situation to what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did with Captain America, the Winter Soldier, with the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that dealing in the show and in the movie, and it all happened in real time for us, which is because we know Disney Plus is down for that because Marvel's doing that with their series. Everything's required viewing now, so.
We're so trained to think that way. This is episode 1 of The Mandalorian. We're already extrapolating how this is going to connect to the Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. It may not have anything to do with any of that, but obviously that's where our minds go. And if it's a Baby Yoda, I think it has to do with the Force in some way. It's
got to, right? And I mean, for what it's worth, I'm really rooting for it not to have anything to do with the Emperor, because I would really like. I'm the type of Star Wars fan that I just want these extra stories. Like, it's a galaxy far, far away. It's not like one family worth of drama.
I'd like to see some of the side characters that, I don't call them the lesser characters, but the characters aren't well known. Like you have a character like Sabine from Star Wars Rebels who could possibly show up. Like I wouldn't mind having a mention of her, see her in this, beyond just like a little snippet, was it in Rogue One when we heard, I believe it was Hera's name being called, General Syndulla being called in the background. Like, I'd like more of an acknowledgement that, hey, Clone Wars, Rebels, like those kind of shows exist. Those characters matter, especially they did a really good deep dive in the Mandalorian culture in, which we're going to talk about soon.
Segue, David.
Good segue in Star Wars Rebels. So I want to see more of that Mandalorian culture explored, which it looks like we might be seeing.
Yeah, and with Filoni helping steer the ship, like you got to know that a lot of that's going to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the first moment in this episode that took my breath away, was when you saw the Mandalorian walking through that corridor, and all of a sudden you saw other Mandalorian buckets in there, and it's like, oh my, it's other Mandalorians, and they explored that part of the culture with the mythosaur, and the armorer, and melting down the Beskar and making it into a shoulder pauldron for him. That was something I guess I wasn't expecting to see so early in the show, but if we're ever going to get Sabine back, I figured that this is a really good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I guess the Mandalorians always remind me, sorry to throw in a Star Trek reference, but they always kind of remind me of the Klingons a little bit. Like, they're a culture that knows how to fight, but they're also very it's like a religion, and like they're very respectful, very ceremonious about it. Like, I love the scene when he's walking in and he sits down across, like there's respect, and there's like this whole system in place for their beliefs, even though it looks like they're they're probably kind of dying out after this the scourge they talk about. But I thought that was a pretty cool scene. I really liked establishing that we're going to get more Mandalorian stuff, culture in this season.
Yeah, and I think too, it's another thing that this episode did really well in terms of setting up a tone and it laid a lot of groundwork very efficiently. Like we said, for a show that only had a 40-minute runtime, I feel like the ground that they covered could have easily made up a much longer episode, but they handled they touched on a lot of things quickly and in an interesting way too. Where I'm looking forward to more. Normally, I don't really care about like. This is the whole backstory of our culture of Mandalorian. It's fine. Like give me the good stuff. Give me the action. But I was interested in this. Like it sold me on it. But in terms of some of the other things that the show did sort of tonally, like it had a lot of really cool side characters too. Let's talk real quickly about Ugnaught. My favorite character in the episode.
Nick Nolte's character.
Nick, I have spoken. Like just Nick Nolte, like drawing his way through, growling at Mandalorian. You gotta learn how to write a.
Quick question though: did they really have to ride those blurgs? They have ships.
100% did not need to ride a blurg.
Just take your ship there.
Yeah, I feel like he was actively screwing with the Mandalorian.
It's supposed to be a Western.
Right.
So in a Western, you have to ride.
Yeah.
You need a space horse.
Break the blurg.
You need a space horse.
Yeah, figure out how to ride it.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the pen, break the wild blurg, and then you just sort of casually stroll across terrain that wasn't terribly tricky.
You could have flown over.
You could have flown over, and I feel like there's a shot in the trailer where there is a plane flying over that exact terrain.
Right. There's got to be a terminal nearby.
That's what I thought. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did like his character a lot. Nick Nolte's character was I think really wonderful. IG11 is another cool character. What do we think? Is he dead?
He reminded me of like Boston Dynamics Atlas, just with blasters.
Right.
The way he moved and kind of walked around and did.
He's gonna fall down some stairs too and just be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, he'll start shooting at whoever whacks him with a hockey stick.
I don't think he's dead
though.
Yeah,
I don't think he's dead.
Right. Not that how
droid can be
dead
repaired.
Droids can be. Yeah, they can get fixed. I am kind of rooting for, in the sense that Taika Waititi probably wouldn't sign on for what amounts to be a cameo role. I mean, I guess maybe he would have, but he's got to come back. I'd like to think he's going to come back. But I'm also rooting for him to get fried in like every episode. Like he dies or he gets blasted in the face in a variety of different ways in every episode. He's like the Kenny from South Park of Mandalorian. That would be a lot of fun. And he comes back sort of slightly different every time, which I think is something that Taika Waititi could have a lot of fun with too. So I'm really rooting for him to get destroyed maybe he'll come back as IG-12 in the next one. He'll get a new call sign.
Well, Taika Waititi is on deck to direct an episode this season, so maybe that will happen in that episode.
Yeah. So let us know what you think of episode 1 of The Mandalorian in the comments down below, and keep it here for more Mandalorian coverage on IGN. We'll see you next time.